My name is Jaccory Dean Harold. I go by Jaccory Dean or Jacko. My background is in graphic design. That's what I do professionally. I also do, I kind of switched out of that and I do private fitness training now. So, I mean, I definitely feel like where we could do better as an artistic community is to include more diversity, because I do think that cis white men are overrepresented in our artistic community locally, but also just diversity in terms of races, in terms of ages. And so that was why I wanted to contribute to the show. But just beyond that, I think that we have a very rich city here and a very rich community, but that's not always reflected in whose work you see. And I would love to see that change, and you know, hopefully this is a step in that direction. I think that right now what we're witnessing is a really interesting intersection between queer identity and Black Lives Matter, which is really exciting for this country. As far as I go, I mean, I don't know, it's like I'm a black man first, in the sense that that's how I'm seen first. People don't always necessarily read me as a queer person. I mean, depending on how I'm dressed or presenting, you don't know that right away. So the way that I'm responded to is how that person responds to blackness first. And then the queer element is laid on top of that and can either enrich or complicate the experience, their reaction, their response. It kind of depends. But for me, my identity as an American is as a queer black man. I like to think that whenever I'm making something, like whenever an artist is creating something, you are drawing on people that have come before you and influences and pioneers. And so for me, it's about looking at what queer artists we've had. What did they do? What did they explore? Same with black artists. What did they do and explore in their work? And for me, it's about what is my place in this world? What should I be doing with my body? So recently I did this series. I've been thinking since the Black Lives Matter thing happened and kind of the reaction from the police, and then like you've had these multiple cases of men being found lynched that if they're saying they're suicides, and I'm not convinced, but it just has like these echoes of lynchings from the past, which were reactions to civil rights calls and movements, and this idea of found footage that is a callback to horrors of the past, but it's not so explicit that you exactly know what it is. So I started thinking about, okay, how do I want to filter that through my own lens? And I'm kind of the muse for myself right now. I do shoot other people, but primarily it's me exploring my body and my identity. So I thought, okay, it's something with ropes and I don't know. And I just started playing around with it and came up with this shoot, which is kind of on the horror side. I'm a big horror fan and always have been in fantasy. And I don't know, that just comes into my work in the sense of, I don't think of myself as a horror photographer only, but I think my work is meant to be disquieting, and hopefully it's not too pleasant. I want it to kind of make you a little uneasy. So some of my work is like erotica too. Mm-hmm. So I like, hopefully it has this overlap between sometimes it's horrific, so sometimes it's erotic, and I think like the black male figure or the body is like seen as an object, and so the idea of shooting myself from the back and the emphasis is on the skin and the flesh, but then there's also the gaze, because I think that it's important sometimes when you're shooting people of color to let them look at the camera, not always having them look away from the camera, because I think when you do that, they're easily objectified. Mm-hmm. But if you also present the body, but also allow them to have the gaze, then it is kind of re-empowers the image. I don't know, I think it's the time for dialogue. Yeah. And I think that dialogue, if it's gonna go anywhere, it has to be real. And right. We have to talk about real stuff, and it's gotta be a little uncomfortable. You gotta leave that comfort zone. That's how change happens.